Welcome to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and their journey. Now, let's get started with the show.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Michael Korn of KwickScreen. That's KWICK screen.com. And Michael, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. Okay. Since this is, Michael is a fellow EO member in London. We had Robert Hartline from EO Nashville. He talked about how he built up a chain of wireless stores, sold it, and is working on, and he's got a software company. He's working on a number of other objectives as well. We have Matt Zalk of Key Renter Property Management of EO Tulsa, and we had Winnie Hart, who has the book Standing Out and runs the company Twin Engine. Check out those episodes and many more on InspiredInsider.com. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships. And how do we do that? Well, we actually do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. So we do the strategy, the accountability, and the full execution. You know, Michael, we call ourselves the magic elves that run in the background and make it look easy for the host and the company so they can create great content and great relationships. You know, for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire on this planet and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com. I have lots of actually free episodes, Michael, where people can check out any topic they can get their hands on for free about a podcast. So check those out. And I'm excited to introduce Michael Korn. He's founder and inventor of KwickScreen, which is supplying healthcare globally with products that transform their spaces. And we'll see some of that. In 2020, sales of his retractable screens climbed from 1.9 million. This is pounds, by the way, which is more than dollars, to 7.4 million. If you remember, and he remembers, there was a pandemic. Okay. That's incredible. So he's also founder of Neurodiverse Works, which is a consultancy and tech business that breaks down barriers for neurodivergent people at work. And he describes himself as a creative dyslexic, a chaotic ADHDer, manufacturing engineer, and a product designer turned serial entrepreneur. And most importantly, Michael, father of three. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much.
You know, you said something before we hit record, which is, you know, speaking to the Neurodiverse Works. Okay, and I'll have you explain a little bit about what KwickScreen is and Neurodiverse Works, but you said you have two children who are autistic. Okay, so how does that affect, when I think of raising kids, it's difficult enough. You know, I see my kids having whatever struggles are to them, not to compare, but it's not even close to someone who has something going on with them, like someone who's autistic. There's other challenges that are there. So talk about how that affects your viewpoint on business and life.
Sure. I don't see it as, as you know, this like terrible challenge necessarily, although it is different. I think it is normally universally harder. We live in a world that is designed for the neurotypical. So when you have a child that doesn't fit that world, as a parent, you have to, you know, maybe you have one or two choices. You can try and change the child, or you can try and change the world. And I'm mostly about trying to change the world because I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with my children. And if I was to try and change my children, I think they've been classed as the most stubborn, rigidly, formed brains of what their special education needs teachers has ever come across. I think I'd fail if I tried to change them as well. And not only, I also think that was the wrong thing to do. It's absolutely massively changed you asked, as a entrepreneur, business owner, having a autistic child who's now 12, and it was at the age of 1, 2, we could see he was very different. Like, he's changed the way that I parent. And my other two children, I think I parent differently thanks to having had him as my first child. I don't project onto them what I want them to be, and I try and put myself in their shoes and see the world from their perspective. And that learning, I think the learning that a parent gets from their child is a very deep learning because it's relentless. It never ends. You can't, and it wakes you up in the middle of the night to remind you. That learning has stuck with me, I think, for the way that I approach business as well. I'm less controlling, and I think helps me as an entrepreneur because I'm now more able to let people do things their way and maybe more empathetic in how they might be perceiving a situation differently to me.
Yeah. I mean, it bleeds into leadership, right? So just talk about KwickScreen first and what you do there.
Well, I invented the product 16 years ago when I was a student. Oh, here we go. Look at that. I was about to say the pop-up banner behind you on its side, but bigger. And here it is.
If you're watching the video, if you're listening to the audio, there is a video version, and you can see what's cool about, I'll have you talk about the company, how you started it, because it's really interesting because you invented this. But it says world leaders in privacy screen innovation. As you can see, there's, it's not just a plain screen, but you could actually print on it. So it makes it's, obviously hygienic. And there is actually a video out there that I saw where they kind of sprinkled what looks like what would be germs on what the typical curtains are, and those don't get washed, obviously. And so that those is I don't call myself germaphobe, but I'm germ aware personally. And those don't get cleaned when they're the normal curtains you see in the hospitals. And with these, there's a singular point of cleaning because you're really just touching the edge and moving it forward. And they did, and obviously it's easy to clean this screen that is if one of these, the normal curtains that you see. And they did an experiment under UV light where they kind of compared the two, which is kind of cool. But you can print on them too, which is interesting. And I'll show some examples of, there's some they have in like a pediatric area, which, kids can feel more comfortable with these type of things. You can kind of see, you can print stuff on there, and there's animals, and if kids are going to be like, it's just more of an inviting environment from a sterile environment.
Wow, Jeremy, you can join our sales team. So yeah, I've been a champion of promoting germ awareness for the past 15 years. Often that's been a hard fight. As you highlighted, during the pandemic, everybody became germ aware. And so that was one of the things that caused our business to have a big period of growth. And yes, as you've highlighted, this product is, the premise was the curtains between hospital beds for privacy are really ineffective at giving privacy. They trap germs, they're touched all over the place, and they can't be washed. In America, they're laundered, so they get pushed in the washing machine. In Europe, they tend to be disposable, so they're thrown away. And they're not washed enough, and they're not thrown away enough. But actually, when they're washed or thrown away, it's terrible for the environment. The washing uses lots of energy and chemicals, and getting thrown away, they go into landfill. So it's a really dirty, ineffective, and unsustainable way of providing privacy to patients in hospitals. And this was the invention 16 years ago. And now the product is, we've got a whole range of products all around the same concept of a big rollout screen, like you've said, for lots of different applications in healthcare. And the business is going really well.
What are some of I want to hear about how you came up with the idea, but before we do, what are some of the other products? So we could see here the screen, what else is there?
So we've got so if I focus on the screen that rolls out, then we've made different versions of that screen that rolls out. Some hospital spaces are smaller, so you might have the Air, you might have I think if you click on KwickScreen underneath that, it will show the other versions of the KwickScreen. So Pro, Air, Duo, Kin, Shield, Pod. These are all different versions of a roll-up screen. Then, this is the main core product of the business. But we've also developed the Quick Switch. So if you go to the top, you can click on that. The Quick Switch, this is really exciting film product. You can stick this on any window. It works really well on interior windows in offices and hospitals and schools. You press a button, and at the flick of the switch, it goes from see-through to not see-through. And we've developed that in a way that is easy to install, super easy to install. Anyone can do it. It's fire safe, meets all of the requirements for use in offices and in hospitals. And also it comes as a complete product. So the electrics and the wiring is all done. So you don't need to have an electrical installer. So that product we've only just launched with Steelcase, one of the biggest furniture manufacturers in the world. And we've launched that across North America. That's really exciting. So it's similar to the KwickScreen in concept because you can have privacy that's hygienic instead of having curtains on the windows. Technologically, it's something completely new. We've been developing it over the past 2 years. We had a massive government grant, and this is the result of it. So that's exciting. And then we have some other products. We can do any interior printing in hospitals. So if you go to interior features, that shows all of the things we've got for printing wallpaper and printing signage. And if you go to the Quick Sketch, well, it's quite a cool product. It's the world's only portable retractable whiteboard. We basically turned a KwickScreen into a whiteboard. So you can write on it, roll it up, move it around the office, open it up again, and continue with what you had written.
There's a lot of stuff. I want to talk about, how did you come up with the idea for KwickScreen? And then I want to talk about Quick Switch, because it's interesting. Obviously, you're applying the applications in hospitals. I'm wondering if you got any other people demanding this when they see it outside of hospitals, because there could be other use cases, like obviously offices, right? Yeah. So how did you come up with the idea for KwickScreen?
I mean, I've got to say, from my perspective, the coming up with the ideas and finding applications is the easy bit. And I can tell you about that, and I can take a lot of credit for that. The hard part of the business was actually manufacturing it and getting it into the market and having the sales and building a relationship with the distributors and turning it into a real business. That's been the hard work. But the fun bit of the story is the conception, as is often the case. That was a crude reference there. So as a student, I wanted to do something in hospitals. As far as I was concerned, you couldn't really design something in a hospital and not do good. I wanted to do something good with my talents and my energies. Also, hospitals, especially the ones in Britain, are not that great. So there was a lot of a lot of room for improvement. The way you have patients with these disgusting curtains between them, universally they were hated. And it's sort of like curtains are the only thing that haven't changed in the hospital environment for hundreds of years. Everything else has changed. The beds, the equipment, everything is different, but you still have these same curtains that you have in like the Victorian times. It's crazy. So I thought I'd take it upon myself to redesign the curtain. And like one of the things that stuck with me was a nurse. I spent a lot of time, by the way, hanging out in hospital wards, not as a patient, like I wasn't ill, but in order to really understand the problem, as a student, I would go and sit in the local hospital and, talk to the nurses and just watch what was going on. And what I saw and what I was told is if you could make something that works like a curtain, but looks and feels like a wall, then you've got it. And it was on that that was the focus that I had. And the real clever part of our product is the technology, the material technology. You can't really see because it's sort of hidden. But the top and bottom of all of our KwickScreen products has a roll-up tube composite. So in there, it's the white bit on the horizontal bottom and the white bit on the top. That's our secret. We make that ourselves. It means the product can be pulled out a whole 10 feet and not sag and not need brakes and hold itself, and also be really easy to clean. And then that allows it to roll in as well. So it was really a combination of understanding the users and what they needed, understanding and developing this new material technology and putting it together in a product that solves everything.
At what point do you say we should print stuff on this? Because it's hard enough alone to solve these components. Like it seems easy, like it rolls up, but you said there's a lot of moving pieces that go in to make it work. And again, in hospitals, they're maybe using it a lot. It's not like it'd be behind me and it just would sit there and I don't have to touch it, right? So what point do you say, wow, we should print stuff on this? Let's make the process even more complicated.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's not it's in a way, it's the opposite. The easy thing is the printing. That is just so easy. The hard thing was making the product and making it work. So it annoys me when we sell I mean, we do charge for the printing. There's a whole manufacturing process and there's a cost and the artwork confirmation that we go back and forth. It is more laborious for us to make the printed ones, but when we sell the ones that aren't printed, I feel like we're selling picture frames with no picture in them. Once we've done the hard work to make this product work, it's a shame not to print inside it. And the impact that it has in a hospital of having these prints, the one you've got there is a beautiful beach scene. There's patients that say, I don't need to go on holiday now. I've been lying here looking at the beach and, thinking about that rather than what people are currently looking at and thinking about when they're in hospital, supposedly in an environment conducive to recovery, but it's awful what they are currently looking at. And there is a lot of evidence to show that views of nature, ideally looking out of a window at a beach, but that's often not practical. And not far off from that is looking at a view of nature actually does trigger the body to recover better. And so we do that. And it's one of the really rewarding and impactful things that the product does, because you see it straight away when you go into a hospital environment with KwickScreens. It's like the first thing that you notice is all these beautiful prints everywhere.
Was that the idea from the beginning? At what point did you introduce, we should print on these things?
I mean, at the beginning, I had 100 ideas. The challenge was focusing on the one that mattered, that really would make a difference, and then introducing the new ideas as and when it was the right time to.
I mean, do you remember a time did someone ask for the? I mean, 'cause it seems like your product is very user-centric, right? You're going in, you're observing people. You're not just going in a dark room and just coming up with an idea. You're getting user feedback here. So what was the user feedback that do you remember a time when someone said, I wish it had X?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've got that list right from day one. And in EO terms, it's the parking lot. The parking lot of ideas is endless. In fact, it's longer than the ideas that we've already implemented. And that's why the company is still very youthful. Our aspirations are still much greater than our achievements. And we're still always engaging with customers and hearing their feedback and coming up with new ideas. And so, at the beginning, I told you, our 5 products that we've launched. There's loads of other products that we would love to be able to develop, and also lots of other, features and things we can add. But we need to make sure that what we're making is brilliant and perfect and does the right job. I think it's in the early days, it was great because it was just me. So I could actually go out with products that weren't completely ready and I could test it. And I could show people something that had loads of different things on it. And it is true, the one that everybody loved was the printing. And so that was one of the things that I'm like, okay, look, with minimal effort, we could make a massive impact. And so fine, let's do it. I was actually unaware at the beginning how impactful it would be to have the print, and also how difficult it is for architects to get artwork in other spaces in a hospital ward. It's really hard to print on the wall behind you. And if the room changes from being pediatric to being elderly care, then it's suddenly you need to do a whole new refurb. With the screens, you just swap the screens around. So I was pleasantly surprised with that.
How did you get the idea for the quick switch, where basically you have this completely switching the room? This also seems complicated to me.
Yeah. Okay. So the quick switch was exactly from the same conversation that I would be having with these nurses. So we have in our current catalog a KwickScreen that is see-through. Why would you want a see-through screen? Well, that's to stop the spread of infections in hospitals. This was something that we developed 15 years ago. Why would you want a great big see-through divider in a hospital? That's stupid. Well, we all know now after COVID, no, it isn't. That is really helpful in preventing the spread of airborne infections. So we had this see-through screen, and then we also had the white screen. And by the way, we could print on both. So when you print on the see-through screen, you can get like a semi-see-through translucent sort of stained glass window effect, which is quite helpful in some environments. And obviously when you print on the white screen, well, then you just get a lovely picture. And some people would say to us, it was a bit annoying at the time, hey, why don't you just make a screen that I can press a button and it goes from see-through to not see-through? That way, I always have the benefit of not getting the germs of my neighbor, but when I press a button, I don't see them and I don't need to pull out a curtain. And I'd say, yeah, great. Like, give me 10 years and I'll make that. Well, that's exactly what happened. 10 years in, we won a really competitive government innovation grant to do just that. And we developed a roll-up KwickScreen, see-through KwickScreen, and you press a button and it goes not see-through. And we trialed it in a couple of hospitals and feedback was great. Problem was, it is very expensive. So it's one of those things that is in our pipeline. We're going to do that at some point when we can, basically when the cost comes down. But after we did that and we developed the know-how to make a roll-up screen that you can press a button, we had actually done something much harder than what you see there, which is, being able to have a film that you can stick on a window and retrofit and make the existing glass walls into smart glass. And that is actually really innovative because most of the solutions there, you have to actually buy the double glazing glass with the film inside it. And so that means that it's expensive. You can't retrofit. You have to pull out your glass and put in new glass. And a lot of spaces are nervous because if it breaks, then it's not, you can't change it. So we really stumbled upon something there by developing something different.
Michael, one thing I want to touch on here is this stuff is not cheap to manufacture. Okay. In the beginning, how did you start the company and fund this thing?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of the hidden successes of the business is that we have never raised any money. And neither am I like some, I haven't inherited a fortune. So it's all been bootstrapped. And I mean, we were fortunate in the early days. I won some prize money. I won a student entrepreneurship competition, which is why I'm a big champion of the GSEA awards in EO. We got joined in with a government innovation program with the NHS in Britain, and we were chosen as the company to produce a product. So they paid in advance of us making the product. So that was like an amazing way to pump prime and innovation. They said, we'll buy 10 of them if you can make it. So then we had to make them. And I did everything myself. So I'm a manufacturing engineer and product designer and I guess salesman. So for the first few years, I would drive to a factory, someone who let us use the corner of his factory. I'd make, actually, no, in the early years, it wasn't a factory. It was the basement of the university. And then my in-laws garage and things like this. So anywhere I could, I built this thing. Then I would take it to a hospital to demo it and I'd sell it for whatever they're willing to pay for it. And then I'd get the feedback and I'd go back to the hospital, back to the factory, rebuild it, go out again. So it was this very, very quick turnaround of prototype, sell, improve, sell, the kind of thing that you can't do if you've got an outsourced manufacturing partner, let alone an international, manufacturing partner. And I guess the hospitals paid us quicker than we had to pay our factory. So we could just about cash flow it. But the most important thing was that we learned so much in those early days by having that quick turnaround. It's the kind of thing that's now encouraged with tech businesses to launch something in a way before you're completely ready with it. But we did it in a manufacturing business and it enabled us to grow to where we are now without ever raising money. The situation now with KwickScreen is that actually we've developed the opportunity to really replace curtains is enormous. We've always known it's enormous. We've invested everything that we made through the pandemic in developing a new product, a new version of this product to be able to completely replace and supersede curtains. In order to get that product into production, we need to really scale up. We need to invest. And we don't have the funds to do that ourselves. So now we are raising money for the first time, 16 years in, but we're raising money at a much healthier valuation and with like an incredible opportunity ahead of us. But I don't think we wouldn't have been able to do this had we gone down a more conventional route of product invention, entrepreneurship journey, because it's been a long slog.
So the opportunity is basically to expand this product into hospitals across the world, US, et cetera.
Yes, but I guess not the product that you see on the website. I'm not sure if we've got but a new product, a new version of the product that's a lot more complicated. So right now, we've made a few of them and they're trialing in hospitals and hospitals love it. And then hospitals say, okay, I want to buy 1,000 of them. We've got, hospitals really interested in purchasing large numbers of them and we can't cash flow that. It's a very good problem to have, but it is the current situation. And so that's why we're now raising money.
Describe what the new product, how it's different.
Basically, it goes round the corner. So if you look at our KwickScreens, they go in and out. The Duo is a corner product, so it's 10 foot and 10 foot. But what we've developed here is something that is specifically designed for use in a hospital to go down the side of the bed and then across the foot of the bed and link up with another one. It's really specifically designed to optimize and solve this problem of replacing all curtains in hospitals. And to do that, we've really, a lot of thought and a lot of detail has gone into it, such that it is quite a complicated product with some internal mechanisms. So we can't make and sell that. We can't bootstrap this new product, this new business. We need to make that in high volumes and sell it at a much lower price point as well.
Yeah. I can visualize what you're saying, because the curtain, some of those curtains you kind of pull and it kind of goes around the corner, and it's on one of those tracks on the ceiling and it goes around the whole bed. And so some of the hospitals are you have the two that kind of go together that enclose it, but you feel like a better solution would be just something that almost mimics the curtain.
100%. And importantly, we don't use any curtain tracks. So we can create a hospital ward anywhere. But yeah, that's exactly it.
I feel like it would be a good Shark Tank product to pitch to the sharks. How do you go about now raising money?
Listen, if anyone listening to this, we were invited on Dragon's Den.
Oh, Dragon's Den, right? Dragon's Den in Canada.
No, England.
Right? Oh, they have one in England. Okay.
Yeah. I'd like to think we started it, but who knows? Anyway, that was in the early days. No, you're quite right. If Shark Tank want us on, we'd come on for sure, because US is our market now.
Talk about the biggest milestone, because you have good problems, right? Where you have people wanting it and you need to expand, and it costs money to make these things. What was the first major milestone of a sale for you in the company?
Yeah, this is a shout out to Anne Kearney at Wolverhampton New Cross Hospital. And it was one of our first demo products, and we took it there for her to trial. And when I went to pick it up, this was in an ICU, intensive care department. And I'm like, okay, you've trialed it for a week. I've turned up to the hospital to pick it up. And she's like, oh, I know you were coming, but you can't take it now. And I said, why not? She goes, oh, no, we need it. There's been a car crash with some kids in gangs, and we're actually using your screen right now to divide up the gang members from the family members who are here grieving their friend. And there's a policewoman sat between the two, and we're using your screen to divide them off, because otherwise we're worried there'd be a fight in the waiting room. And I was like, wow, this is not what I designed the product for, but hospitals are crazy places. You never know what's going to happen there. And she was like, you can't take it. I need to buy it. And I was like, okay, for sure. You can have it. And so it was unexpected sale for an unexpected use. And, we thought about the significance of not cashing that check, because, it would be worth so much in the future, just as, that actually someone bought this product. But, we cashed it. We took a photo.
Just take a picture of it, frame it. Yeah. That's a great feeling when someone demos it and then basically tells you, you can't take it.
Yeah.
We need it. Now, Michael, this wasn't your first product, actually. When we talk about entrepreneurship, there's many learnings. We won't call it failures, but many learnings that get us to where we're at. So you actually had a product before this that didn't make it commercially. Talk about that.
Well, you've done your research. Very good. For everyone listening, he does, he does a good podcast. So just digging up all my part. This is like which one? Like when the head teacher would say to me, Michael, tell me about the thing you did that was wrong. And I'm like, oh, was it this? He's like, no. I'm like, oh, what about this and this and this? She's like, no. I'm like, okay. So there's more than one previous product. The one that I was sort of like, for 15 years, I have been the screen guy. Before that, I was the needle safety guy. I'm here holding a pen. In hospitals, hypodermic needles, there's a big risk that you would stab yourself with a needle. That often happens. It's terrible. And when you do, you can contract the the whatever was in the needle. So the bloodborne pathogens from the patient, or if it was from a bin, then the bloodborne pathogens from an unknown patient. So this is a crazy problem, needle stick safety. And I love the product that I invented there, a needle safety device that incorporated itself into the paper bulk packaging of a tray. So rather than changing the needle, I changed the paper pulp tray that they use in UK hospitals. It was a brilliant idea. And then there were other ideas from that, like
talk about stick safe for a second.
You want to know about, I mean, there's loads of them.
Talk about stick safe. And this is stick safe because you did, I think, get a grant for it, and you made a go at it. It wasn't just like some idea you came up with. Like you actually took it further.
I did. I got a grant. I won awards. I made a go at it. And, that is why I was hanging out in hospitals, because stick safe predated KwickScreen. Stick safe was my first year product. KwickScreen was my second year product of a 2-year degree. So after spending the first year hanging out in hospitals, looking at needles, I also saw curtains. So, and also because I had won some awards and got some money to develop the stick safe, it meant I was already in the ecosystem of the NHS, the National Health Service. And so it was, it was easier to start the next thing that was also solving a problem in the same space. So I wasn't completely from scratch. Which is what you do with a needle as well. But yes, I mean, look it up. There's not much to say about stick safe anymore.
Well,
I got it into production, but it's one of those things where, unlike the KwickScreen, I couldn't make and sell it. I couldn't make it. It was going to be sold for pennies. So it was a high volume, low value product. And therefore, to get started, I needed this big injection of money and investment and manufacturing commitment. And it's quite counterintuitive that such a simple product would be so much harder to launch. That there was something about a high value product that I could actually build myself at zero labor cost and actually sell and make some money. But I wasn't able to make any stick safe trays myself. And that's really what, one of the reasons why it never got started.
So stick safe, looking back, the challenge with launching that is it was maybe not perceived as high a value, and also the cost, you couldn't sell it for as much. So it made it harder to make it a viable business without a huge injection of capital.
Yeah, you could definitely say that. Also, that the hugely competitive market space, massive companies have spent billions of pounds developing all of these safety needles, and here I come along with something else. It was going to be a difficult fight. Whereas in the world of hospital curtains, I was the king because there was no innovation there. It was a much easier space to.
At what point, though, I'm not going to say give up, but that you decide to switch? Because some people, with whatever product they're doing now, there comes to be a decision where, like, I just want to push forward. I'm going to make this work. I know this is it. Versus, I think I'm better served moving on to a different product. How did you make that decision to shift?
Yeah, I guess because my time got consumed with KwickScreen. If KwickScreen had not been a success, I probably would have focused more of my time on stick safe, and I could have made that a success. And I think it's a real shame because what I know now, I think I would have been able to hand stick safe over to. There were people that wanted to take it on, and I didn't quite know how to navigate that. So yeah, take my IP, take the product. I don't, really, I would be a lot happier if there were stick safes in the world being used and I was getting zero money from it. But but instead it's not. It's just nothing. There's a load of prototypes in the loft in the house, and that's it. It's actually quite a sad thing, and there's a lot of that. And it's sad that I have it's a horrible word. I'm not going to say it. It's in my head. A stillborn of an invention. Like it could have been something. Somebody could have taken that and done something with it and gone in whatever direction, but I didn't know how to, and I think that's a real shame.
Talk about Neurodiverse Works and the idea behind that.
Well, anyone listening to this might have gathered that my brain is slightly wired differently to other people. And I've only really come to embrace that recently. During the pandemic, I had an ADHD diagnosis. As a student, I was diagnosed with dyslexia. I sort of hid that and was a bit ashamed of it. And and as you mentioned before, I've got two sons who are autistic. So over the past few years, I've really been thinking about, people thinking differently, me thinking differently, my children, what are the pros and cons and challenges of that? One of the reasons I'm an entrepreneur is because nobody would employ me. And yet I look at the business of KwickScreen and I think actually the reason we were so successful, I'm good at coming up with ideas, but we have a lot of people in the business who are really talented, and we've given them the space to be themselves and to lean into their strengths, and we don't trip people up for their weaknesses. We're, positive spirit. And because of that, we've got so much more out of our employees than they would have in other companies. And we've been able to compete with companies much better resourced and bigger than us. And I've put everything's come together to make me realize that that's because we're neuro-inclusive. That's because so many of us are quirky, different thinkers and create an environment where diversity is embraced. And so this is my interest, my passion. And so the new business that I'm working on now, tech-enabled way to support neurodivergent people in finding work that really matches with them.
So how does Neurodiverse Works work?
Nice. So right now we've set ourselves up as a consultancy to work in this space. The platform that we're building is a matching recruitment platform where people who are neurodivergent can articulate themselves, what my attributes might be. Like you mentioned it before, I am a chaotic creator. There's a good and a bad, but I'm not hiding the fact that, I'm messy and I talk a lot and I might turn up late. But with that comes a lot of creativity. So, take the rough with the smooth and embrace both of them. We also help people figure out what careers there might be. A lot of people are pigeonholed into a career, but when they really discover who they are, they might realize there's loads of other careers. And as we know, in the next few years, there's going to be loads more careers being created, lots more opportunities and AI enabled. And people that think differently are going to be great for those kind of creative jobs, innovative thinking. And we're also, part of being neurodivergent is that a workplace might not be set up for me. I might need some performance enablers, some accommodations, so that I can, work with headphones on to have noise cancelling, or play music all the time, or I can have different hours of working, or when I'm on a Zoom call, I don't want to have the screen on. Loads of different interesting accommodations that actually enable neurodivergent people to perform at their best and not be tripped up. And I want people to be able to voice that early on in the interview process rather than be ashamed of it and hide it. And we're building a tech platform based on other platforms that exist to facilitate that. And the theory is that if we help neurodivergent people be themselves and find work that really matches with them, we're going to have the same platform that's going to help Gen Zers find work that match with their values and enable them to bring their full self to work. And then introverted people who don't really like turning up at an interview and faking it and bullshitting about themselves, they will also thrive, and will actually create a much more equitable society and world.
Can people find that? Where can they find that? Is there a separate website for that, or?
No, we've not launched the product yet. But people that are interested and want to work with us, please get in touch. We're building this in the background. We're looking for companies that want to have new ways of recruiting. So we're not only going to present the candidates authentically in a completely, unique way that you don't get anywhere else, but we're also going to give companies, it's essential, companies also present themselves authentically, because it's a yin and yang. To be neuro-inclusive, you need to both ask the candidate what they need, but also you need to show the candidate what you can do. And I think that is what we want. So any companies that want to embrace this, that want to learn about it, they just want to ask me, I guess, reach out to me on LinkedIn.
I want to talk about some of the inspiration behind your journey and your products and company. And it kind of goes back to your grandfathers. Can you talk about their inspiration?
Sure. I know you've also got a story of your grandfather on your website. So I have two very different grandfathers with very inspiring stories. One, a doctor and an academic who grew up in Baghdad, was, I think, the highest ranking Jewish officer in the Iraqi army. One of his claims to fame is that he might have delivered Saddam Hussein. Anyway, he came to Britain when the NHS was just started. The National Health Service was just being born. And as an immigrant who didn't really speak English, he had to retrain as a doctor, and he had to take whatever job he was given. So he was given like some awful GP practice, and he took it. And so he was part of building the NHS. My other grandfather, also a Jewish.
Why did he end up leaving?
Oh,
did he ever talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, my cousin has written a book about it, the story of the Jews of Baghdad and why they left. Like, yeah, after the Second World War, the Arab world was not a safe place for Jews. Prior to the Second World War, it was the safest, best, most wonderful place where Jews lived and thrived alongside their Muslim and Christian neighbors. It really was, the most wonderful place. Jews of Baghdad have been there since the Babylonian Empire. Like, it really was, absolutely wonderful. But I mean, similar to the Jews of Eastern Europe, what happened in Eastern Europe happened during the Second World War. What happened to the Jews of the Arab countries happened after the Second World War, because Nazism spread there, unfortunately. And so, yeah, they were all forced out of their homes. And so that's how he ended up here. His siblings went all over the world. They went wherever they could go, many of them to Israel or to America, or one to Burma. And that's the story of the Jews of the Arab world.
What's the book called that your brother wrote?
Oh, no, my cousin.
Oh, your cousin.
Wolf of Baghdad. It's a wonderful book. It's a book that's a cartoon. She's an illustrator, and she's drawn the story. So it's a picture book, and she's also a musician. So it goes with the music, the music that the Jewish community would have been playing then. And so she continues that and shows the whole journey of Jews that were living in Baghdad, and then where they've ended up going, and the lives that they're now living, and continuing their Iraqi and Jewish heritage in these different parts of the world.
And the other grandfather?
So the other grandfather was from Poland, a part of Poland that is now Ukraine. His family was less fortunate than my Iraqi grandfather's family, because I don't think any of them were killed. I think one was abducted. But they left before the massacres happened. My Polish grandfather, he lost all of his family, extended family, except for his one of his brothers that he left with. All the rest were killed. We think probably shot in the fields outside his village, which I visited just a month ago. So he came. What was that
like when you visited?
What was it like visiting it? Well, I went to Ukraine. Because I wanted to explore my roots. I also wanted to do something to help the war. I've done a lot in helping Ukraine through EO as well. So I had a refugee, and we donated loads of our KwickScreen products for the EO refugee center in Warsaw. And I just wanted to keep doing this because, I mean, bizarrely, I sort of grew up disliking Ukraine, hearing the stories of how my family were shot by both the Nazis and with the support of their Ukrainian neighbors who allowed it to happen. I'd always been scared of Ukraine, and I didn't want that. I didn't want to be, racist and have any hatred within me. So it's been my EO journey has been to explore that. And most recently, I drove an ambulance to Lviv, which we donated with some medical supplies and the soldiers there. And then while I was there, the people were so wonderful and took me to the village where my grandfather was from, and I got to sort of get a good understanding of the life that he might have lived in. And where his ancestors, I was more interested in the life rather than the end of their life. I wanted to sort of see the life that they would have had rather than worry too much about the death. Anyway, this was him. He came to England and was a tailor. So he'd make stuff with his hands. So I think you're referencing an article that the Times wrote where, I sort of drew on both of their inspirations to be both someone that could help the NHS. The NHS sort of needs help now, like it did 70 years ago, but also to make something. My grandfather, who was a tailor, it was like hugely rewarding to actually build something, and I wanted to do that. But yes, I mean, it's maybe worth saying the trip to Ukraine was for me to put a lid on the traumas of inheriting the massacres that had impacted my community. it was like, okay, it's 3 generations now. I don't need to carry around the trauma of the Holocaust anymore. Okay. This was me trying to sort of like cleanse myself, trying to, rid myself of that because it's not helpful. A week after that, or 2 weeks after that, the massacre happens in Israel. And it's just horrific. And we donated pickup trucks to Ukraine so they could rescue their soldiers. The same pickup trucks were used by Hamas to kidnap people, abduct them, and take them into Gaza. So all these memories that I was just about to sort of put to a side and somehow, live my life without the anxiety of a traumatized Jew, Hamas have just brought that all back, and it's really a very awful, scary time.
Michael, first of all, thank you for sharing your story, your journey, and your inspiration with all of us. I want to encourage people to check out KwickScreen.com to learn about what you're working on. That's KwickScreen.com. And thanks for everything you do in the world. So thanks, Michael, and thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast. This episode is powered by Rise 25. Please subscribe and check out future episodes.